Nats Chat is brought to you by Walters. Are you ready for some football? Well, Walters is, and Walters has all of the games for you all weekend long. Reservations are limited and can be found on all Walters social media channels.
Walk-ins will also be available, but will be on a first-come, first-served basis. So don't get left out and make your reservation today.
Now the pitch. Fastball swung on, line to right, one hop, a base hit. Coming in from third to score is Escobar. Juan Soto has his second of the night, and 2 runs on the board here to start the top of the 5th inning. It's now the Nationals 5 and the Pirates 2. Here's the pitch. Swinging a long drive. Right field. Way back. Going, and gone. A home run for Ben Gamel. The second home run of the inning. It's a 3-run inning for the Pirates, and this game is all even.
High target from the catcher Perez, and the pitch. Oh, inside, hit him in the batting helmet, the side of the face, in the jaw area. And Ruiz is holding the side of his face after getting hit up in the face on the batting helmet. The runners go, the 3-2. Swinging a ground ball right side, out in right field. The ball booted by Garcia. All hands are safe, and 2 runs are going to score. Throw to third, not in time. With the runners going, Garcia's error leads to 2 runs. The inning that will not end. It's a nightmare in Pittsburgh. The Pirates 9, the Nationals 5.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Sunday, September 12th, 2021. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Mark Zuckerman is off for this episode. Tim Shovers, he's always working, but he's not with me for this episode. So it is you, it is me. Hope you're having a nice weekend. It is a great sports weekend, one of the best sports weekends of the year. It is not, though, a good weekend, at least so far, for the Nationals, who are in danger of being swept at the lowly Pittsburgh Pirates over 3 games. A 10-7 loss at the Pirates on Saturday night in a game that took a lightning-fast 3 hours, 53 minutes. But the Pirates, even with that win, have the second worst record in the National League at 52-90, have the worst run differential in the NL at -205, and yet the Pirates are on the verge of sweeping the Nats. We all remember, right, it was a 3-game sweep at the lowly Orioles, July 23rd through the 25th, that sealed the Nats' fate as sellers, getting swept at both the lowly Orioles and the lowly Pirates in the post-All-Star break portion of the season. Would not be good, but that is a distinct possibility. But as we like to say, the outcomes of these games don't really matter anymore. What matters are how the potential building blocks do. And what's even worse right now than the Nationals being on the doorstep of a 3-game sweep at the Pirates is that Josiah Gray looks to be a mess. This is not good. This is very disheartening. And he was perhaps at his worst in this game on Saturday night. I mean, this set up to be a bounce-back outing. The Pirates are not a very good team. Josiah Gray had some obvious mechanical issues in his last outing. Davey Martinez talked about those. Not that mechanical issues are always easy to fix, but pretty clearly the Nationals knew what the problem was. And Josiah Gray still had problems on Saturday night. He was bad for a 3rd consecutive start. He allows 5 runs in 5 innings. And what stood out more than anything, clearly, the walks. Josiah Gray issued a jaw-dropping 6 walks over the 5 innings. He threw just 54 strikes versus 46 balls on 100 pitches. The Josiah Gray who we saw over his first 5 starts as a National was like nowhere to be seen for so much of this game. 6 walks in 5 innings. He only gave up 3 hits, but they were 3 crucial hits, 2 home runs and a 2-run single. He had 4 strikeouts. Josiah Gray now, over his last 3 starts, has allowed 17 earned runs in 12 innings. He rather quickly has gone from the guy who was pitching the best in the Nationals rotation to right now you maybe have to say pitching the worst. I mean, it's quite a 3-way battle for that honor between Josiah Gray, Patrick Corbin, and Derek Fetty. But at least Corbin was decent in his last outing. You know, you could say Fetty has that championship belt of who's the worst right now in the Nats rotation, but just the fact that Josiah Gray is a part of that conversation is very disappointing. Now, obviously, you don't write the guy off, and obviously you chalk these last 3 starts up to growing pains, okay? I'm still very excited about what Josiah Gray can end up being as a Washington National, but, you know, you think about this season, and it's not been a good National season. You think about next season, and, well, is it going to be year 2 of a rebuild, or is it maybe just going to be year 1 of a retooling, and are the Nats kind of back into their winning ways? A guy who's going to have a major say-so in that is Josiah Gray. Because you see, when we talk about, well, are the Nationals going to be rebuilding for multiple seasons to come, or are the Nationals simply retooling, and are they going to be back to winning sooner rather than later? The Nats can have whatever plan they want, and the Nats can think whatever they want, but ultimately a good bit of this is out of their hands, right? Because if these young building blocks don't develop, then it don't matter what the Nationals want. The Nats are going to be bad for a while here. The path to the Nats being decent again next season, even being good again next season, certainly would seem to include someone like Josiah Gray being good and getting to where you want him to be sooner rather than later. And so that's why how he does down the stretch of the season matters in particular. Like, no doubt you want him to be a piece for the Nationals for years to come. But when it comes to like the immediate future of the Nats, a guy like Josiah Gray has a pretty significant say-so. Because if you can go into next season with Josiah Gray pitching well and Cade Cavalli on the come, and maybe possibly you can find a fix for Patrick Corbin, now you're cooking with some gas in terms of getting that rotation back on track. But Josiah Gray's a big piece of this, and now he's in this rut here of 3 consecutive bad starts. So he begins the outing in decent fashion, retires 6 of the first 7 batters he faces, but he, in the bottom of the first, issued a 1-out 8-pitch walk of Yoshi Tsutsugo, despite him having been down to the count of 1.12. Get used to that name. You're going to hear it quite a bit. Gray then gave up 2 runs in the bottom of the third on 3 walks and a single. Issued a leadoff 7-pitch walk of Hoy Park. Issued a 2-out 5-pitch walk of Tsutsugo. Issued a 2-out 5-pitch walk of Brian Reynolds to load the bases. And then Gray gave up a 2-out bases-loaded 2-run single to Colin Moran on a 1-2 pitch for a 2-0 Pirates lead. Now, Gray did toss a scoreless bottom of the fourth, but he in that inning issued a 2-out 6-pitch walk of Hoy Park. Gray allowed 3 runs in the bottom of the fifth on 2 home runs and a walk. Issued a 1-out 6-pitch walk, and guess who? Yoshi Tsutsugo, despite him having been down to the count at 1.12. Gray then gave up a 1-out first pitch 2-run homer to Brian Reynolds to right field to cut the Nats lead to 5-4. The homer going a projected 426 feet per Statcast. And then Gray giving up a 2-out game-tying solo homer to Ben Gamble to right field to tie the game at 5. That homer only going a projected 347 feet per Statcast. So you had walks and you had multiple home runs. It's a bad combination, man. The whole thing of, well, he only gives up solo homers, that's kind of going away here a little bit with him giving up that 2-run shot. But more to the point, the walks. The walks really were what slapped you right across the face. You don't see this often, what Josiah Gray did on Saturday night, averaging more than a walk per inning as a starter. Sometimes you'll see a reliever give up multiple walks in one inning of work, let's say. It's not often you see a starting pitcher issue more walks than innings pitched. 6 walks over 5 innings, and not a single one of those walks was intentional. This was not, well, he had to put this guy on base, for strategic purposes. He was having a hard time throwing strikes. Like I said, he threw just 54 strikes over 100 pitches. So Josiah Gray now, over his 48 major league innings, so that goes back to some of what he did with the Dodgers. He has allowed 17 home runs. He has issued 23 non-intentional walks. I took out the intentional walks because I don't want to put that on his account. 17 home runs allowed, 23 non-intentional walks over 48 major league innings. That works out to 3.19 home runs per 9 innings and 4.31 walks per 9 innings. Not good. Not good. Now, again, we're not writing him off. We're not dismissing him. We're not even really panicking here. It's just kind of noting where he's at. Not in a very good place. And the Nats got to figure this thing out. The Nats cannot keep doing this, where pitchers come to them and get worse. Patrick Corbin is worse. Eric Fetty is worse. Joe Ross is worse. Now Josiah Gray is becoming worse. Josiah Gray has to work out. The Nats have got to figure this out. And that he was so good initially as a Nat offers hope that the Nats can figure this out, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago. We were going nuts after every Josiah Gray start here on the Nats Chat podcast. Josiah Gray, over his first 5 starts for the Nats, over 28 innings of work, an ERA of 2.89. Beautiful. You love seeing that. And, it's not like he fattened up on a bunch of patsies. There was a 3-2 win at the Atlanta Braves on August 7th involved in that mix. There was a 4-2 loss to the Braves at Nationals Park on August 13th involved in that mix. There was an 8-5 win over the Toronto Blue Jays at Nationals Park on August 18th involved in that mix. 2 runs in 6 innings. If you have doubts about the Blue Jays, look up their offensive numbers. Look up what the Blue Jays did to the Orioles in Game 2 of a doubleheader on Saturday night. So Josiah Gray did well against some good lineups. And now it's kind of funny, right? Against the weak-hitting Buccos, he has some major problems here. on Saturday night. So got to get Josiah Gray fixed. Of course, Josiah Gray and catcher Keibert Ruiz, the top two prospects, the headline prospects, and a crop of four prospects acquired for Max Scherzer and Trey Turner in the biggest of the trades that made up that sell-off in late July. And speaking of Keibert Ruiz, he certainly was a headline item for the Nationals in this 10-7 loss at the Pirates on Saturday night. What an eventful game for Keibert Ruiz. I feel like I could do 2 hours on what happened with that guy on Saturday night. So he goes 1 for 2 with a big 3-run double, but gets banged up. So let's start with the positive, and then we'll get to some of the negative here. So Keibert Ruiz, as we all know, has not hit well so far in his time with the Nationals at the major league level. He has that breakout offensive moment on Saturday night. You know he was dying to do this. It was great to see him do this. In a Nationals 3-run fourth inning, Keibert Ruiz authors easily his biggest hit as a Nat so far.
So here's Keibert Ruiz needing the 2-out hit. And a swing and a line drive right center field, giving chase is the right fielder Tsutsugo. It's by him and rolling to the fence. Scoring is Escobar. Soto will score. Bell trying to score. The throw toward the plate. Josh is in standing. It's a 3-run double. The biggest hit as a National for rookie catcher Keibert Ruiz.
2-out first pitch, 3-run double to right center field of, interestingly, Pirate starter and former Nats prospect Will Crowe, who was part of the package the Nats sent to the Pirates this past December in the Josh Bell trade. Terrific moment for Keibert Ruiz. You know, it's not like he has looked lost at the plate. He's gotten under some baseballs. He has been making contact. It's not like he's been striking out a ton, but, you know, it was underwhelming. I mean, we've been talking about him on the pod. Great to see that moment. Great piece of hitting. You know, aggressive in the plate appearance in terms of that being a first pitch 3-run double. Puts the Nats up 3-2. Now, what was interesting is that, you know, he does that in that Nats 3-run fourth. That is, of course, the top of the fourth. This was off a bad defensive bottom of the third for Keibert Ruiz. Like I said, this was an eventful game. So Pirates have a 2-run third inning. First of all, Ruiz in this inning commits a 2-out throwing error.
Gray long hold brings it home. A high pitch missing and a throw into center field as Ruiz tried to pick off the runner. Park will head to third. Thomas picks it up, throws to third, and Kieboom has to come off the bag to catch the one-hop throw.
His throw in an attempted pickoff at second base went into center field, advancing Hoy Park to third base. The throw was terrible. I mean, this was just not a good throw at all. The throw hopped on the infield grass and into center field, didn't even make it to the infield dirt. And then later in the inning, and this was kind of a complicated situation, but the umpires, the replay review got this right. Ruiz deemed guilty of violating the home plate collision rule and offering no path to the plate for, guess who? Yes, Yoshi Tsutsugo.
Here's the 1-2. Swinging a line drive right side, base hit into right field. 1-1 will score. Tsutsugo trying to score. Soto's throw to the plate on one bounce. The tag by Ruiz, who dropped the ball, but Tsutsugo missed the plate, so Ruiz picks it up and tags him out.
Who ended up being ruled as scoring on what ended up being a 2-out bases-loaded 2-run single by Colin Moran on a 1-2 pitch for a 2-0 Pirates lead. So Ruiz did not position himself properly, did not allow for a proper path to home plate for Tsutsugo. But also on this play, and this ended up not mattering, was Ruiz essentially committing a Wilson Ramos in not being able to hold onto the baseball, in tagging Tsutsugo as he attempted to score off a nice throw by Juan Soto. Now, again, none of this mattered because Ruiz was in the way in terms of that home plate collision rule, but Soto makes a good-looking throw to home, and then Keibert Ruiz can't hold on to the baseball. Remember, Wilson Ramos used to have that issue. Ruiz did gather the baseball and tag Tsutsugo for the apparent out, but that ended up being overturned via a replay challenge by the Pirates. So bottom of the third, he has a throwing error on the attempted pickoff and then violates the home plate collision rule. Also drops the baseball. Then in the top of the fourth, he comes through with his biggest hit as a Nat, that first pitch 3-run double with 2 outs to put the Nats up 3-2. And then in the top of the sixth inning, Keibert Ruiz, in a frightening moment, gets hit on the right side of his face by a pitch from Pirates reliever Kyle Keller for a leadoff hit by pitch. That was painful. You heard the smack. That did not look like it felt well at all. Now, I think we may have learned something about his toughness, because for a while it looked like he was maybe going to stay in the game. And the good news was that he was kind of like moving his jaw after getting hit by the pitch, because that's the immediate, first of all, the concern is the guy, knocked unconscious. When it became clear that he wasn't, then the concern becomes, well, did he break his jaw? And at least with him being able to move it, you felt, all right, maybe it's not as bad as it looked. He does, though, leave the game. I would think in a circumstance like that, he almost has to leave the game because he does have to go through some kind of concussion protocol. Gets pinch run for by Riley Adams. Now, the good news is that Davey Martinez, during his postgame press conference, said that X-rays on Ruiz negative. So that's excellent news.
Yeah, X-rays were negative. He's got a slight headache, which I'm glad that's all he has, but he said he feels fine. So we'll see how he feels tomorrow.
So we'll see if Ruiz ends up starting as an Nats catcher on Sunday. Not sure if that was going to happen anyway, right? Day game after a night game. Maybe Riley Adams was the Nats starting catcher in game one of this series on Friday night. But a whole lot going on for Keibert Ruiz on Saturday night, just like there was a whole lot going on, and unfortunately not much of it good with Josiah Gray on Saturday night.
Hey Nats fans, are you looking to buy or sell a home or an investment property? If so, contact Jamie Coppersmith and the Coppersmith Group at McInerney Associates. A huge Nats fan right from the get-go in 2005, Jamie has repeatedly been recognized by Washingtonian Magazine as a top-producing real estate agent across the DMV. Referred to by a client as a Jedi Master of real estate, he will bring his expertise to bear on your behalf, helping you understand and navigate this challenging real estate market. Jamie is a 5-tool agent who's as patient as Juan Soto at the plate. He has his own version of Moneyball, a strategic and statistical market-based analysis that balanced with a deep respect for your specific real estate needs, goals, and timeline. So, whether buying or selling, call Jamie Coppersmith today at 202-525-7471 or visit his website at thecoppersmithgroup.com. That's Coppersmith with a K.
Swinging a drive to deep center field. This is way back. At the wall is Reynolds. He leaps, and it is gone. Goodbye. Bang! Zoom goes Ryan Zimmerman with his second pinch hit home run of the year and his 13th home run overall. And a lot of Nationals fans who are in Pittsburgh enjoyed that one. The Nationals get a run back on a home run to dead center for the Z-Man. And it's now the Pirates 10 and the Nationals 7.
The positives for the Nationals included, yes, the offense. I've been saying this. I'm going to keep saying this. The Nationals can hit, and they continue to hit. The Nationals, rather sneakily, have one of the better offenses in the National League this season, and another impressive offensive outing on Saturday night. Nats finished with 7 runs, 12 hits, 5 walks. Juan Soto had 4 hits on Saturday night, 4 for 5 with 4 singles, including an RBI single. Nats 3-run 4th, Soto single into right field. Nats 2-run 5th, Soto full count RBI single to right field for a 5-2 Nats lead. Nats 1-run 7th, Soto 1-out single. Top of the 8th, Soto 2-out single. His major league leading on base percentage up to .454 on the season. The ex-Pirate, Josh Bell, he had another good game on Saturday night. Got on base 3 more times, 2 for 4 with 2 singles and a walk. 3-run 4th, Bell, a single up the middle to load the bases with nobody out. Bell in the top of the 5th, a single up the middle. Bell in the Nats 1-run 7th, a 1-out 5-pitch walk as Bell continues to draw his walks. That's been so encouraging with him. His OPS for the season now at .815. It was just a few episodes ago we remarked how Josh Bell had reached the 800 OPS plateau on the year. Dude's up to .815 in just a handful of days. He looks so good right now at the plate, and you know he loves doing this at PNC Park. Ryan Zimmerman homered on Saturday night. We had a Ryan Zimmerman appearance. We don't get many of these days. But I tell you what, Zimmerman, who earlier this season was not good at all as a pinch hitter. You know, that was supposed to be like a big part of his role with the ball club this season. His overall pinch hitting numbers for the season were really bad as of like a few weeks ago. But he's been much better in these pinch hitting scenarios lately. And he delivers in the top of the 8th on Saturday night a pinch leadoff homer to dead center on a 1-2 pitch to cut the Nats deficit to 10-7. The home run going a projected 411 feet per StatCast. The home run is Zim's 13th homer this season. And it's so interesting when you look at some of Ryan Zimmerman's rate stats on the year. He's slugging .473 on the season. Now, remember earlier in the season, the slugging percentage was sky high. It's come down, but that's a respectable slugging for a part-time player, .473 on the season. His on-base percentage, though, is .283. You know, Ryan Zimmerman is like the modern-day Rob Deere for the Nationals this season. Like, the only thing he does is hit homers, but that's a good thing. Like, there is value in that. But he doesn't draw walks. He doesn't get on base much otherwise. But 13 homers now, again, .473 slugging versus that .283 on base, and a terrific shot on a 1-2 pitch again to begin that top of the 8th inning for the Nationals on Saturday night. Lane Thomas got on base 2 more times on Saturday night. The Lane train keeps rolling. 1 for 4 was Thomas with a double and a walk. Thomas in the Nats 2-run fifth, a leadoff opposite field double to the right center field gap on an 0-2 pitch. Thomas in the top of the 8th drawing a 7-pitch walk. If you remember when Kyle Schwarber went nuclear in June, I was giving you guys daily updates on the Kyle Schwarber surge in the slugging percentage because it was insane how that thing leapt up with all those homers Schwarber kept hitting. Here's your daily Lane Thomas slash line update because this guy just keeps pounding and keeps adding to these numbers here. 106 plate appearances for Lane Thomas at the major league level with the Nats. His batting average is up to .311. I guess actually it's down because he only went 1 for 4 on Saturday night, but his batting average is at .311. His on-base percentage is up to .406, and his slugging percentage is at .522. A 300, 400, 500 run for Lane Thomas so far for the Nationals at the major league level. And he's been so consistent. You know, I think that's the thing that's standing out maybe as much as anything. There are some guys who pile up numbers in bunches and clusters. With Lane Thomas, it's been a pretty even distribution here. I feel like you can count on one hand the number of games in which he hasn't gotten on base at all. And otherwise, it's like every game, he's on base a few times. You know, every game he does something that we end up highlighting on the Nats Chat podcast. That is a remarkable consistency. And to me, I always rather have that than the guy who goes off for a month and then disappears for a month. You want reliability. You want consistency. And we'll see ultimately if Lane Thomas is a reliable, consistent major league player. But what you have to say is so far, and the sample size keeps growing, like I said, 106 major league plate appearances with the Nats, he has been a reliable, consistent player for the Nationals. And Alcides Escobar continues to deliver offensively. 2 for 5 with an RBI double and a single. Escobar in that Nats 3-run fourth, a leadoff full count single to center field. And Escobar in the Nats 2-run fifth, going golfing for a full count RBI double to the left center field gap on a low pitch for a 4-2 Nats lead, despite having been down in the count at one point, 1-2. I say it all the time with Alcides Escobar. To me, it is as true as anything is true with any hitter on the Nationals. Nobody is better on the Nats right now, this season, maybe even in recent seasons, at turning essentially trash into treasure, you know, at turning a plate appearance in which you're down 0-2 or 1-2 into a productive plate appearance. And Escobar does it on the regular. In fact, it feels like the bulk of his hits come in plate appearances in which he is down at one point 0-2 or 1-2. That is such a skill, you know, and we know that Alcides Escobar is a guy who puts balls in play. I mean, he's been known to do that for years, going back to his time with the Kansas City Royals. But to see it on a day in, day out basis, I think you really appreciate it when you see it that way. And Alcides Escobar just continues to produce in that circumstance. And like I said, on that hit, going golfing, it seemed like a low pitch, but he figures out a way to put bat on ball, and he ends up getting himself that full count ribby double to the left center field gap for a 4-2 Nationals lead. So like I said, lots of different Nationals hitting well. The Nationals overall continue to hit well. 2 guys, though, who did not hit particularly well on Saturday night, and 2 guys who had defensive issues on Saturday night. 2 guys who are kind of tied to the hip for various reasons. Luis Garcia and Carter Kieboom. So Luis Garcia in this game 0 for 3 with an intentional walk. He left 4 men on base. I don't want to hit Luis too hard on the offense because he's been so much better in that regard lately. But he also committed a crucial error. And Luis Garcia really is emerging here as a high-variance defensive second baseman. His good is great, but his bad is brutal. And we had some bad from Luis Garcia in this game defensively on Saturday night. And what ended up being a Pirates 4-run 6th inning, Luis Garcia commits a 2-out 2-run fielding error in butchering a Ben Gamble grounder into shallow right field on a shift for a 9-5 Pirates lead. The ball was basically hit right to Garcia in the shift, and he botched the play. I mean, there are no two ways about it. 2 runs ended up scoring. For all of the times that people, especially people on TV, like to say when a team is in the shift, oh, well, if they weren't in the shift, that wouldn't have been a hit. There are many more times that the shift works. This was a classic example of that. The ball was basically hit right to Luis Garcia in shallow right field. Whoever is responsible for assembling national shifts, who's gathering that data, telling Davey, hey, this is how you deploy these guys when this guy's batting. Excellent job in that regard. The ball was hit again right to Luis. That's exactly how the shift is supposed to work, and he just doesn't make the play. Luis Garcia will make these spectacular acrobatic web gems, and then on basic routine plays, he comes up short. It drives you nuts. You know he's capable of being an excellent defensive second baseman, but we're not seeing it just yet. You can't say that he's there yet because that consistency is lacking. Now, he's so young, right? I mean, he's 21 years old, so you'd like to think he's working the kinks out, and by this time, hopefully next season or maybe 2 years from now, we're talking about a guy who's very good defensively. But right now, it's just like sometimes you see him be spectacular, and sometimes you see him and you're like, what are you doing, dude? And that was one of those moments, that 2-run error and that 4-run sixth inning. And then Carter Kieboom. So Carter had a really bad night offensively. 0 for 5 with 2 strikeouts. He left 7 men on base, and he had a bad defensive moment. This is a little more excusable than what happened with Luis Garcia, although this still to me was not good. So Kieboom failed to field a Kevin Newman wet-out RBI double off Sam Clay to left field in the bottom of the 7th inning for a 10-6 Pirates lead. Now, the replays that were available to us were not very good in terms of trying to analyze what happened with Carter, so I'm just going off what you saw from afar, and if you watch the game, you know of what I speak very afar on the replay. But what looked like happened is, so Newman did hit the ball hard, but Kieboom whiffed on an attempted backhanded attempt at the baseball. Carter Kieboom plays a position, third base, that is known as what, right? The hot corner. So sometimes balls are hit in hot fashion, like that's part of the position. And that he failed to backhand that baseball, that he failed to make a play on that baseball, to me was disappointing. So, not an easy play necessarily, but you'd like for your third baseman to be able to make a play like that, especially, if the game is crucial, and in a spot like that, you're trying to keep your deficit to what it was, and instead the double ends up going out there, and the Pirates tack on a run to go up 10-6 in the game. Nats Chat is sponsored by Silver Branch Brewing Company, located in downtown Silver Spring, only a 1-minute walk from the Silver Spring Metro station. Silver Branch is a perfect jumping-off point to Metro down to the game. Park at the Cameron Street parking lot and meet up with friends for a beer and a bite to eat before metroing down. You can also get Silver Branch beer at Nationals Park. Beyond the Gnome World, one of Silver Branch's 4 flagship beers, is available at District Drafts at Section 223. Brewed to be light and refreshing, Beyond the Gnome World won a gold medal for the Saison beer style at the Great American Beer Festival last year. Beyond the Gnome World is deliciously dry and thirst-quenching, and the perfect beer for hot summertime ball games. You may not be familiar with Saison, but take our word for it, baseball season is the perfect season for Saison, and buying from District Drafts to support your local breweries is a gnome run. Go to Section 223 and try Beyond the Gnome World the next time that you're at Nats Park, and make sure you stop by Silver Branch, located in Metro Plaza, just steps from the Silver Spring Metro. Silver Branch Brewing Company, when you come in, let them know that the Nats Chat podcast sent you.
Hey Nats fans, this is Eric Bramer, play-by-play broadcaster for the Fredericksburg Nationals. Time is running out to see the Fred Nats in their inaugural 2021 season at beautiful new Fred Nats Ballpark. With promotions every night of the week and a talented roster that includes Jackson Rutledge, Jeremy De La Rosa, Brandon Bossier, Yordi Barley, and many more, the time's never been better to see tomorrow's Washington Nationals stars today. Visit FredNats.com for ticket information and follow us on social media at FXBGNats for the latest updates.
2 balls and a strike. Here's the pitch. And a ground ball up the third base line. Fair ball down the line headed toward the corner. Racing for third is Park. He's going to be waved in. The throw toward the plate. The slide, and he's in there safely. And over to third is Newman. So the Pirates get a run back and lead 10-6. Be an RBI double for Newman to third on the throw as Park scores all the way from first.
Well, I mentioned Sam Clay. This was another very bad game for the Nationals bullpen, and Clay was far from the worst of the culprits here. But Nationals relievers in this game on Saturday night combined to allow 5 runs, 3 earned in 3 innings, and what just made you want to scream, okay? What made you want to shout to the heavens as a Nationals fan? So you have Josiah Gray, like I said, issue 6 walks in 5 innings. Then Alberto Baldonado and Andres Machado combine to give us that beautiful 4-run Pirates 6th inning. Baldonado and Machado in that inning combined to allow 4 runs, 2 earned. All right, this is the bottom of the 6th inning. But what really just made you want to, like I said, scream, Baldonado and Machado combined to issue 4 walks in that inning. We've talked so many times, Mark and I, on this podcast, right? How Nats relievers will come into games, not throw strikes, and how Nats relievers will come into games and inevitably issue leadoff walks. It feels like that happens all the time, right? In this game, Baldonado and Machado, 4 walks in that bottom of the 6th inning. The first 3 Nats pitchers on Saturday night, Josiah Gray, Alberto Baldonado, and Andres Machado, combined to issue 10 walks in 6 innings. Let me repeat that. 10 walks in 6 innings. I mentioned the game taking 3 hours, 53 minutes. This is why, okay? Gray, Baldonado, and Machado made Gio Gonzalez look like Greg Maddux in terms of control in this game. It was unbelievable watching. I'd love to know in the history of baseball how often that has happened. 3 different pitchers over the first 6 innings of a game combining to issue at least 10 walks, and yet that is precisely what happened in this game. Baldonado, bottom of the 6th inning, faces 3 batters, gets just 1 out, begins the bottom of the 6th by issuing back-to-back walks of Michael Perez and Hoyt Park, though Baldonado does then get an out on a sacrifice bunt. Then Machado comes into the game. Bottom of the 6th, runners on second and third, 1 out, game tied at 5. He promptly does what? Walks the first batter he faces. A Nationals bullpen specialty. Keibert Ruiz is walked on 4 pitches to load the bases. I mean, you could not really have scripted that to be much worse, right? Machado comes into the game, tight spot, walks the first man he faces, and walks him on 4 pitches. You know, it's a no-doubter. Keibert Ruiz is walked to load the bases. Then Machado issues a tie-breaking 2-out, 5-pitch, bases-loaded walk of Brian Reynolds for a 6-5 Pirates lead. And then Machado gives up a 2-out, bases-loaded RBI infield single to Colin Moran on a perfectly placed swinging bunt for a 7-5 Pirates lead. So I don't kill Machado for that play, but when you put a bunch of guys on base, you know, you put yourself in position to get got on a play like that, right? So that's an unlucky RBI infield single given up by Machado, but it's hard to have a lot of sympathy for him because, again, he gives up those walks. Then came that Luis Garcia 2-out, 2-run fielding error in butchering the Ben Gamble grounder into shallow right field to put the Pirates up 9-5. Clay allowed a run in the bottom of the 7th inning on a double into single to put the Pirates up 10-6. The only Nationals reliever in this game who got the job done, Ryan Harper, a scoreless bottom of the 8th inning with 2 strikeouts. But we've seen this many times. We are going to continue to see this over the final few weeks of the regular season. This is the Nats bullpen. You know, sometimes it does do well, and sometimes individual guys look really good, but way too often the bullpen collectively does not deliver, and that was the case in this game. But the pitching obviously starts with Josiah Gray, who the Nationals have got to get back on track. Well, speaking of trying to get a starting pitcher back on track, Game 3 at the Pirates, Sunday afternoon at 1:05. Patrick Corbin will be the Nats' starting pitcher. Corbin is coming off a semi-decent outing. 4-3 win over the Mets at Nationals Park this past Monday afternoon, Labor Day. 3 runs in 7 innings. Now you say, well, that's better than decent, especially by Corbin standards. Well, the line is yes. The peripherals were not very good, though, in this game. Corbin gave up 11 hits on Monday afternoon. 11 hits, a homer, a double, and 9 singles. He only had 4 strikeouts. Did, though, only issue 1 walk, so that was good. And he did throw strikes in the outing. 73 strikes versus 41 balls on 114 pitches. And remember this game, too, Corbin battled in this game. Davey left Corbin in the game for a while, and Corbin ultimately delivered. He answered the call. Top of the 7th inning, he tossed a scoreless 7th inning despite giving up a single and a walk. But like I said, he threw 114 pitches in that outing. Also had a single in that game in an Nationals 1-run 4th inning. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to expect, okay? I mean, no, the Pirates don't hit well, but they sure seem to do just fine offensively on Saturday night. You know, Patrick Corbin still has the worst ERA among all qualified pitchers in the majors this season. ERA is 6.14 over 27 starts. I'm interested to see what the crowd is like at PNC Park tomorrow. You know, not that we've had, you know, some cauldrons that the Nationals have been playing in over these last few games here, okay? We know the deal. I mean, the Pirates are perennially bad with the exception of those 3 consecutive playoff appearances, 2013 through 2015. But, you know, PNC Park is a beautiful park, but the Pirates are not a very well-run franchise. But, for instance, you did get a pretty good crowd on Saturday night, nearly 18,000 at PNC Park. But Sunday afternoon, is, of course, the start of the NFL regular season in earnest, right? We had opening night on Thursday night. But Sunday afternoon, it's a 1:05 game. Also 1 o'clock on Sunday, Steelers at the Buffalo Bills. And anyone who knows anything about Pittsburgh knows it's Steelers first and then everything else second. My wife is from Pittsburgh. Her family's from Pittsburgh. I mean, it's amazing. The Steelers are like a religion up there. So I'm not sure how many people are going to be in that ballpark on Sunday afternoon with the Steelers playing at the Bills in what is one of the more attractive games on the NFL Week 1 card. But whatever, whether there are 18,000 people or 18 people, Patrick Corbin needs to try to end his season in a positive way. I've given up on trying to predict what Corbin does. But like I said, if the Nationals are going to be better sooner rather than later, you would think that includes, like I said, Josiah Gray delivering on the hype and Patrick Corbin getting his act together. To those ends, you can always email the Nats Chat Podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Email from Stan. If the Nats don't fire Hickey quickly, he will ruin Gray just like he has others. Triple exclamation mark. Well, thank you, Stan. I've thought a lot about the Jim Hickey situation, and we've gotten a lot of questions about Jim Hickey. And I guess the way to answer the Jim Hickey question is this. We don't know enough about what he has done and hasn't done with Nats pitchers this season to be able to say whether he's at fault for this complete collapse of the Nats rotation, okay? Or at least whether he has a sizable portion of the blame that should rest on his shoulders for this complete collapse of the Nats rotation. But what we can say is this. In this, his first season as Nationals pitching coach, the results of the Nats pitching staff are not good, okay? So whether that's on him to any reasonable extent or not, tough to say. What we can say is that the pitching staff has been really bad this season. And we have seen not only people struggle, but like I noted, we've seen regression. Corbin regressed. Fetty regressed. Ross regressed. We're in the midst now of seeing Josiah Gray regress. So, yeah, it doesn't look good. Now, is that Jim Hickey's fault? I can't say. Maybe he's telling these guys to do all the right things and they're just not listening. Maybe he's telling these guys to do the right things and they're just not doing it because it's just not clicking for them. I don't know. I don't think Jim Hickey took stupid pills coming into this season. There's a reason Davey Martinez handpicked Jim Hickey to be the Nats pitching coach. But no doubt, the pitching results this season are not good, and it's very troubling to see Josiah Gray's season unraveling here over these last 3 starts. Email from John Walker. He writes, was struck by the Gray Day idea mentioned on the podcast recently. Continues Walker, FYI, and Little Hoya Al may know this. Yes, that's a reference to me having gone to Georgetown Prep High School. Continues John, Georgetown U has had a thing called a gray out game at one home hoops game for years. Yeah, and continues John, complete with 3 t-shirts. I may have to rock one of these shirts if I attend another Josiah Gray start. So, John gets into this thing of, do we need to come up with a theme for Josiah Gray starts? Do we need to come up with like a nickname for Josiah Gray? Listen, Josiah Gray needs to pitch better. Then we can worry about nicknames and t-shirts for Josiah Gray, all right? Gray Day works quite nicely because of his last name. But, this guy's got to get that ERA down, and this guy's got to develop consistency, and then we can have some more fun with the hashtags and the t-shirts and the nicknames here. Yeah, but potentially there are some marketing opportunities with Josiah Gray. Well, a reminder, Sunday morning at 9, while you're getting ready to watch the Nationals and the Pirates, while you're getting ready for the first NFL Sunday of the season, listen to the radio version of the Nats Chat Podcast. We're on each Sunday morning at 9 on 106.1 ESPN in Richmond. So if you're in the Richmond area, give it a listen. Again, that's at 9 o'clock on 106.1 FM in Richmond. And if you're out of the Richmond area, you can listen online, ESPNRichmond.com. You can always tweet us at Nats_chat. You can email us to natschatpodcast@gmail.com, including if you have a voice memo that you'd like to share with us and with the world, with the collective Nats Chat Podcast universe. We're taking your submissions right now in terms of your predictions for the Nationals. We're asking for one prediction for the Nats for 2022, but we know many of you still want to share your World Series memories or October 2019 memories, so you can submit those as well. Just record yourself speaking into your smartphone and then email the file to us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. I know we ask you guys to do this all the time. Just again, if you don't already subscribe to the podcast, please consider subscribing. That doesn't cost you anything. And if you haven't yet given the podcast a 5-star rating and just written like a 1 or 2 sentence review, especially on Apple Podcasts, please consider doing those things. They cost you nothing. They take like 30 seconds, and they help out the cause that is the Nats Chat Podcast a lot. You can get yourself a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt by going to natschatpodcast.square.site. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. I'm Al Galdi. Myself and Mark will talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast. And right now, we leave you with a World Series voice memo. This one comes to us from Akul Mehra of Great Falls, Virginia.
Hey, Al and Mark. My name is Akul Mehra. I'm from Great Falls, Virginia. I'm currently in Blacksburg, Virginia, as I'm a grad student at Virginia Tech. Back in 2019, in the postseason, I was a junior in college. I was also at Virginia Tech here in Blacksburg, and I have a great story from Game 5 of the NLDS against the Dodgers. So, a little backstory. I remember I was 13 years old back in 2012, and I remember the game against the Cardinals where Drew Storm blew it, Game 5. And I was 13 years old, wasn't really as into baseball as I am now, but I turned the game off after the third inning when we were up 6-0. And, I put kind of like the dates of the NLCS in my mind, and I was kind of ready, excited the Nats were moving on. This whole playoff thing was very new to me. And so ever since then, I became pretty superstitious about watching the games all the way through. That was obviously a heartbreaking experience for me the next morning when I woke up and checked the scores and the Nats had lost. And so fast forward now to 2019, Game 5 NLDS against the Dodgers in LA. The game started at about 8:30 Eastern Time. And so by the time the game ended, it was pretty late for us here on the East Coast, at least it was for me. And even more so for me because I had an exam the next morning in my 8 a.m. class. It's my Introduction to Transportation Engineering class, and I was really nervous about it, and so I thought, let me get some good sleep tonight so I can do well on the exam tomorrow. And so, that the 7th inning ended against the Dodgers, and I saw that Clayton Kershaw was, still come back on the mound for the 8th inning. And so I said, you know what? After seeing what Kershaw has done to us previously in the playoffs, this is probably not going to look good for us. I'm probably good to go to bed. We'll try again next year. And, of course, the top of the 8th inning was when Juan Soto and Anthony Rendon hit the back-to-back home runs to tie the game. And then, obviously, we know what Havoc Kendrick did in the 10th. But I went to bed. Honestly, I feel like minutes, maybe seconds before those 2 home runs were hit. And I obviously woke up the next morning to tons of text messages and all my friends being, oh my God, did you see that? And, obviously I hadn't responded and, woke up next morning and absolutely went crazy, went berserk. Probably woke up all my roommates at like 7:30 in the morning. And I guess that was just another lesson for me. I guess I had learned from 2012 that you got to watch all these games through. And of course, the rest of the postseason, I don't think I had any other exams the next day for any other games, but I watched every second of every inning all the way through. I didn't miss a single pitch because I guess I had to be taught that lesson once more. And I definitely will not be missing another second in the future. Thank you, Alan, Mark, and Tim, for putting us all together and for allowing us to share our memories. I thought that was a pretty great story to share. Keep up the good work. Love the podcast. Listen every single day. Make the time still in my busy schedule, just like thousands, maybe millions of other people do. So just want to thank you guys again and have a good one.
Here's the 1-2 delivery. Swing a line drive right field. That's a base hit toward the line. Rendon being waved in. Peterson throws it in toward the plate, and it is not in time. Rendon scores standing on an RBI single for Juan Soto. The Nationals are on the board here in Game 5. Juan Soto drives in his 3rd run of the division series. It's now Los Angeles 3 and the Nationals 1.